Hello, everyone. Dr. Kat here, and I'm going to be reading the essay that I wrote on claiming recovery, maybe not a good idea, and talking about the difference between recovery and transformation. For those of you who don't know me, I am a neuroplasticity coach and I run an online program called the Primal Trust Academy and Community, where I help people who have chronic illness and trauma patterns walk through their healing journey. This particular post was really it provoked a few people, and I had a few people ask me to make a video on it. So that's what I'm doing, and I hope that you enjoy it. Here we go. Claiming recovery from limbic system impairment. Maybe not a good idea. This is part one of recovery versus transformation. Have I ever told you that I'm not a big fan of trying to claim being healed, or more specifically, claiming recovery for those that are on the limbic system retraining path? I know you're likely already triggered hearing that sentence, so please be willing to hear me out on this. I've seen a few things in my day of coaching that warrants my hesitation of having people claim their recovery. And it's not that I don't think that you can be healed or recover, quite the opposite. Those terms are concrete and imply an endpoint and can be used by the ego to work against you in some situations. One of the most important and missed components in the chronic illness healing world has to do with ego identity issues. And that is a particular topic that brings up for people who, and that's really what this particular topic brings up for people who strive to claim a certain identity of, I'm a recovered brain retrainer. It brings a certain status along with it. Recovery is a term that implies a completion of a process. However, I have rarely seen somebody who has been one of the recovered ones that didn't in the future have some ebb or life situation result in some limbic overactivation again. And much of the time that I see this future ebb, I witness this person experience fear. It's all coming back. Or what will they think if they find out that I'm having symptoms? Or even worse, I'm a coach or a celebrity in the DNRS world and they can't know that I'm not doing well. Do you see the issue here? When you claim something that has kind of a black and white definition, that means that you have finished a process or surpassed the others. Then, when a situation returns that activates your limbic system again, your ego can freak out a bit because it feels like it has lost what it has once gained. Finding a term that is less dualistic is often better in the long run because life continues to challenge us when our ego wants to grasp at some title to prove itself safe. That's also a tricky setup for a future setback. Time and time again, I have had the recovered ones reach out to me, both clients and yes, even several popular coaches in the brain retraining world. And in a fear based panic, they ask what they did wrong to have a setback. And even more, they're afraid of others finding out that they have limbic patterns again because they're seen now publicly as recovered and have gone to great lengths to create an identity of being recovered. Well, do you see the predicament they're in? What's true here? Are they recovered or are they limbic? Maybe what is true is at a certain point on their life path, they experience the cessation of limbic overactivity. They had turned off their fight and flight switch, but as life always done, certain situations occurs. But as life always does, certain situations occurred that result in the limbic system overactivity to turn back on, and they went into fear again, perpetuating the stress response. So at one point, they recovered and healed, and at the next point, they were stuck again. This creates a sense of deep frustration and resistance to the identity of the ego, because the ego needs control and a sense of safety. And the term recovered or healed gives the ego that sense, but now that identity is challenged once again. One of the things I've learned in my journey is that words have tremendous power. More specifically, the words that we use after the phrase, I am, have tremendous power to our ego structure and our energy field. I have learned to carefully choose the sentences that I claim as myself because I know my identity is being formed by them. So if we claim, I am healed or I am recovered, and then we get sick and stuck in the symptoms again, what does that mean to our ego? threat, which can cause a pretty big internal stress response because our ego's identity is being challenged. Now, of course, if your true definition of those words, I'm recovered or I'm healed, is not so concrete or black and white, your ego will not respond with so much threat. But unfortunately, too often, what I see in the brain retraining world is a desperation to become recovered and a white knuckle grasp on that status it has once achieved. Of course, this doesn't apply to everyone, but it is common. And so I must speak about this issue. So, what to do? How do we strive for healing without claiming an identity that we cannot guarantee as part of our vulnerable and unpredictable nature of being a human on this intense planet? Well, a few years ago, after claiming recovery myself, I realized my journey was not over. My body might have felt a ton better and I was free of being diseased, but I was still on a path of change. I was still challenged at times, and my limbic system would get overreactive for periods of time as I navigated tumultuous life situations. So I had to find a better way to describe my healing identity. I was on a healing path, but I didn't have the title. I didn't want to have a title that implied completion or even perfection of my body as part of the title status. And that's when I adopted the phrase, I am on the transformation path. It rang so true to me the moment that I claimed it. I am transforming. There was no beginning and end point. There was just eternal progression. This statement allowed for both my recovery and my ebbs. It allowed me to not fear a setback. And mostly, it allowed my ego identity and structure to have a vision of something so much more satisfying and beautiful than just being recovered. I identified as a being of love and light that was transmuting her past limitations and alchemizing the energetic densities that I carried. And yes, a great side effect of this process is my limbic system is able to be more stable overall and return back to regulation after a storm. That is why I encourage you to use words that are less concrete regarding your healing identity. You are always changing, and it can be hard to live up to a standard set by our society, culture, and community. And I promise there is freedom in letting go of the goal to be healed and recovered. And instead, go for something much greater, lifelong transformation and growth. The ego might resist this idea a bit, but I recommend contemplating these ideas and seeing if they resonate. The more you open up your ideas of what recovery means, the more possibilities you invite in your life. I have a part 2 of this particular blog essay, which I will record in a separate video where I'll describe my personal experience of claiming recovery and then claiming transformation and shed more light on this topic of what I think recovery means and how my life has become so much more rich and grand and opened up my journey to deeper layers of transmutation beyond just limbic system recovery. Thank you so much for listening.